It is my pleasure to introduce the players for our second match of the day in the World Championship Series. Our first player was one of the first Korean players to move outside of Korea. He's lived in Europe for the past 3 years, representing Team Millennium. Welcome, ForGG. Now, ForGG will be going up against one of the biggest fan favorites in StarCraft 2 since the beginning. He had a great run in WCS at the beginning of 2014, and he's looking to do the same here today. Please give a warm welcome to Team Liquid's TLO. Gentlemen, please shake hands. Can't wait to see what happens between these two. Let's head back to the expert desk with Apollo.
Thank you very much, Smix. What a matchup we have as our second game. ForGG versus TLO. But let's take a quick look at ForGG.
I'm not special practice for tournament. I just every day practice, and then I can confident every race. So nothing special, right? And it will be round of 16 also no different. First, I want WCS final because I never go final. Always round of 4 drop, so I want final.
These aggressive moves that he makes with the Banshee Hellion, I mean, we saw Happy do it well in his first series yesterday.
I'm not scared of anybody.
And there we have ForGG, a player that isn't looking, Kalaris, to be eliminated in the round of 16. Wasn't looking, of course, to be eliminated in the round of 32. He has his sights to win the entire championship.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, here in Europe or here in the Western Hemisphere, he has been in his own little place for a long time. He's looked good. He is by far, in my opinion, the favorite to win the whole thing.
The whole thing?
He is looking very, very good right now. And I think that going up against even some of the big Koreans here, like Paul and Hydra, you know, I think he's got a very good shot against those as well.
Well, Todd, talk to us a little bit about ForGG. We've all known him for a long time, but if there's anyone new watching now, how do you describe ForGG when he plays StarCraft?
He's just like a winning machine, I guess. I don't see a better way to describe like somebody as strong and as consistent as him, because he's been consistent for a very long time. He always gets very deep in tournaments, doesn't necessarily win, rarely does actually, but always goes very far. I don't think he ever bombed out in a round of 16. Like, it'd be a big shocker for me here if he was to. And especially against TLO, I think he has like an insane winning record against TLO as well. I remember the one tournament that I organized online, I put them both up against each other in the group stage because they were both in Europe, so there wouldn't be any lag issues, and he just demolished him, man. I felt bad for TLO. So unless TLO has had some kind of, you know, secret meditation session in which he came up with like some most ridiculous ways to deal with ForGG style, I'm a little bit worried for him here in this match.
Well, this is a big game for TLO, and he's going to have to bring his A game onto the stage here. But before we talk about TLO, let's take a closer look at that guy.
I would have imagined to lose the first match against Kalasor. So I expected him to be the easiest player in the group for me, but he actually played incredibly well. I think better than Paul expected to. And then on the other hand, beating Jim came easier to me than I thought it would be. But overall, I would have thought that I go through a second and Paul is first, so overall was like I expected. I watched a lot of VODs, especially of Jim and Paul. So maybe I was a little bit underprepared for Kalasor, so I need to make sure that next time if I think somebody's an underdog, I give him still as much attention as the more known guys.
And TLO pointed out there that maybe he underestimated his opponents in the round of 32, but he is not going to be underestimating the likes of ForGG here. Fenner, talk to us a little bit about TLO and how he's going to approach his series against, as Todd has mentioned, this winning machine of a player in ForGG.
Yeah, TLO, he's coming in, he's a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. He's got that positive personality that everyone loves. He's been around for pretty much forever, since the start of the game, and people just adore him for that. But as far as approaching the game, like he said in the interview, he's been practicing a lot. And looking at ForGG, he's got a very specific playstyle that TLO can lock down on. So we'll see how we can deal with that.
Well, what are some of the things that he'll be looking towards, you think? I mean, TLO is, how would you describe TLO as a player? Is he reactive? Is he, you know, creative?
Yeah.
I mean, where would you take him,
People
Fenner?
throw creative out there, but looking through his VODs, he doesn't have anything crazy he's doing right now. What I saw from him, he's playing ultra defensive.
Yeah.
And against someone like ForGG, who's always going to be going for that two-base aggression, just hammering it on, trying to do the damage. And if he can get the lead, then he just follows it up and wins the game. That's going to be something that's amazing. So it all comes down to can TLO defend the two-base aggression from ForGG?
All right. Well, Cloris, you spent a little bit of time with TLO recently.
Yeah.
Over the past week or two. Give us some insight. What was he like? Was he relaxed? Was he practicing hard? How were things going down in the world of TLO?
He was practicing doing his own stuff and things like that. And I actually spoke to him specifically about this match and how he was going to kind of approach what ForGG was going to bring to the table. And one thing that he absolutely wanted to do was, one, play this defensive style like Fenner was mentioning, but also using his scouting to the utmost accuracy to identify what ForGG is going to be doing. He wasn't 100% sure at the time if he was going to be going mech or even bio. We've seen a lot of mech from him as of late, and obviously those aggressive moves that ForGG can do with Hellions and Banshees can lead into even bio as well as mech. So that's one thing that TLO really wants to identify there and then build his strategy around that.
We talked about it a little bit before, Todd, is that last year at the start of the year, TLO had a great start to 2014. He went to Sao Paulo, played in the Intel Stream Masters, banked up a lot of points, did pretty decent in Season 1 of the WCS. But then things just started to crumble. He maybe felt the pressures. We saw Snoot start to feel a lot throughout last year as well. He was like, well, you know, if I do well in this tournament, I get enough points here, then maybe I can see myself at the global finals. Is that something that just must not happen at all for TLO if he has dreams and achievements to reach that, which every pro gamer should be wanting to go towards, right?
Yeah, I think you should take it one tournament at a time and one match at a time. Like, you know, consistency is not something that you should aim for as much as, you know, just trying to be good in general and putting up results, which is pretty much, yeah, I guess the same thing to some extent. But last year, you know, the first tournaments of the year, it wasn't like the race towards the end of the year where everybody was trying to score points, you know, to qualify for WCS. There was a lot of Koreans in some of those tournaments. It was very difficult. Now we're still early in the year. It's a new format, so maybe it's going to be on his mind a little bit, but he should definitely only be thinking mostly about, you know, what he's going to do and how he's going to counter his opponents, I think.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about both of these guys joining together now as this match number 2. Let's go over to a stat that we don't bring out too often if it's not important, but let's talk a little bit about head-to-head. When these two players go up against each other, it's 4-3 in series in favor of ForGG, which doesn't seem too crazy.
I thought it would be way more.
Hold on a second. You settle down over there, Todd.
Sorry.
The first 3 victories that TLO did get, he got in a row. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, as far back as 2013. Since then, 3-1, 2-3, 3-3, 4-3, 4 games in a row that ForGG's won against TLO, including a game within the WCS. And on top of that, TLO hasn't won a single map since October 2013.
Wow. Wow.
There's the time machine, Apollo.
Where's the time machine? Is it that simple? Where's the time machine? Is this what we're going to be seeing up there?
I mean, it's a new 4GG. Like, TLO beat him back when he was, you know, beginning with the game. Ever since, he's been a beast. And not just against Zerg in general, but yeah, we've talked about the strategy too, like that 4GG employs a lot against Zerg. I really wonder, actually, like how TLO is going to try and face that. Like, we've seen 4GG very strong with those early game timings.
We're talking a little bit about what TLO's going to do and react towards, but what are we going to see from 4GG? Like, what is he going to do? How do we know that? How does TLO know that? What is 4GG going to do?
Apollo.
He's just going to play mech and that's it? We're just going to see a lot of tanks and banshees and that style that we saw in Beat Life at that DreamHack Finals?
The quick armory, the Hellbats.
That's what we're expecting here?
The thing is, it doesn't come down so much to what he goes after the aggression. Like, it doesn't matter too much if it's bio, if it's mech. It matters about can TLO defend that aggression. That's where 4GG gets the lead and continues through the game. Because a lot of things 4GG does is, once he's got the lead, then he'll just push with mech and continue to go and go and go. If you see him go into the late game, we saw it against Firecake. He had a massive lead in the Premier League against Firecake, and then Firecake sat back with Swarm Host, and he made a huge comeback because ForGG honestly gets weaker and weaker and weaker as the game goes on. It's all about that two-base pressure.
So what is the best way not to fall behind in the early stages then? Is it as simple as adding on that Roach Warren, adding on that Bailey Nest, making sure you know exactly what's coming?
Yeah, and we saw it in the Premier League. TLO has been going for a lot of Roach plays, so I think he's going to have the perfect kind of openers, assuming he's going to be doing the same stuff in the Premier League to go up against this. The question is, can he position everything perfectly to deal with aggression? Because one thing out of place, and ForGG will be in there with Hellions just burning up your drones.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the map pip here, Kalaris. We have Vani Research Station, a great starting map for ForGG, surely. Then Deadwing and Catalina. How do you think this plays out? Like the pace of the series? Is it going to be heavily in favor of, ForGG first or TLO?
I don't even mind Vani Research Station for TLO as well. If he's able to lock down on 2 bases, it's a very small choke to actually get into those 2 bases to really defend things up. Of course, if he wants to actually have those Banshees mixed in and they do try and hit on different angles, you need to have those bases connected up with creep and make sure you're not going to be vulnerable with your queens actually having to walk around.
Actually, ForGG is not invincible on this map. He lost to Firecake.
Yeah, he
Remember that game?
It took a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody forgot that game.
No one forgot that game.
Especially me and you, Todd. That
So,
was a long one.
There's another interesting point I want to look at before we get ready for the series. It's almost ready now for you guys at home. ForGG played against 2 Zergs in the round of 32. Quite a bit of information, despite it being, 4-6 weeks ago. Also, TLO played against 2 Terrans in the round of 32, well, 2 matches against Terran, should I say, against Kalizer. How do you think that kind of plays for both of these guys? Do they take a lot of information from that series to help build the correct image on what's going to happen?
I think TLO studied them carefully and he's going to use the info that he got from those games, which is that ForGG definitely is not invincible against Zerg. He might have even have studied Life, who did pretty well against ForGG, but it's pretty hard to copy Life. Whereas ForGG, I don't even think he watched those games, man. He just plays ladder and then wins games in tournaments.
Yeah,
He said it himself.
I think Kelazor actually is a good example because he plays very similar to ForGG, a lot of 2-base aggression.
Right.
TLO, he struggled in the first series against Kelazor. I think he went down 0-2 and then came back 2-1 in the next series.
Yep.
So I think TLO's definitely got an uphill battle here against ForGG.
Is there a way that you can even overthink this from TLO's side of things as a Zerg player, being that reactionary player, or is it no, there's no overthinking it, I'm going to think of all the possibilities that can come my way and just find specifically what that one is? Or can he hurt himself?
It's definitely possible. It depends on his own mindset. Is he going to go into this? Is he nervous? Does he really think? Because I think he had the perfect build against Kelazor. Really fast roaches. You can shut down Hellions and Hellbats so easily, and then the Queens just clean up the Banshees. As long as he does that, he wins. Will he change it up? We'll have to see in the series.
You make it sound so simple.
It is simple if you do. Well, it's not simple against ForGG. It's not simple against ForGG.
Get in that booth up there.
It's not simple against ForGG because what he does is he'll fly a Banshee around the back, and then as soon as the Queens move out the position, the Hellions will go in, so you've got to be super careful about your positioning.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys, for the input on this second series of the day. But it's now time to find out, can TLO climb this uphill battle and find a first map win since October 2013? That's a long time ago. Let's find out with your commentary team, Rotterdam and Nathanius.
Thank you very much, Apollo. We are very excited as well. And Nate, there are very, very few things in life that are easier for me than casting ForGG with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there's one thing that I like to do in my spare time when I'm eating my breakfast, getting ready to play, or even just laddering myself, it's watching ForGG, someone who puts a lot of his games out there, but plays so much in so many different styles that knowing that doesn't generally seem to help anybody against him.
No, for you guys wondering, I've obviously casted quite a few games with Nate, but Nate, he talks about ForGG all the time. Every now and then, I think that Nate's love for ForGG is a little bigger than it should be. It almost scares me every single time we drive to work, whenever we go somewhere. Nate talks about ForGG, he dreams about his builds. You know pretty much everything that there is to know about this guy, and especially in this matchup.
Yeah, ForGG has been, someone that's just been around for a really, really long time. And it's someone that TLO would play against quite a bit on ladder, as ForGG lives in Europe, practices in Europe. And while he may still hold accounts in the Grandmaster League on servers for both Korea and Europe, he is somebody that is very, very solid. He has some very particular builds that he likes to use a lot, something that we heard mentioned in the desk, the Hellbat Banshee push. But he's the kind of guy that if you expect to see this 100% from him, it could put you far behind, because ForGG has also been known in the past for being an incredibly greedy player, and he's still very capable of doing standard builds and playing out very solid strategies like we saw him do against Life at DreamHack Winter last year.
Yeah. In general, I don't really care too much about statistics that are old, but I did like the statistic that the boys brought up at the desk, which I thought was really interesting, where TLO did beat ForGG like 3 series in a row, not just like a best of 1, but actually series. It was 2-1 and 2-0, I believe. And after that, ForGG was able to win 4 series in a row, so multiple best of 3s or a best of 5. And I think that is actually something that makes a lot of sense. I was a little later in truly believing in ForGG than you did, or maybe even a lot of Europeans out there. He was always one of the Koreans that got so much hype whenever we talked about WCS America versus WCS Europe. They'd be like, well, we got ForGG. And I just always looked at it as like, well, I think Teja and Bomber and stuff are way better than ForGG. And I think that was definitely true for a very long amount of time. But something has changed over time. You know, ForGG had once upon a time a great run in WCS, like early 2013. But after that, he had multiple disappointing seasons, multiple disappointing tournaments in Europe. And I always thought, for a Korean that is as good as he is, or has been as good as he was in Brood War, and gets all the hype, that he should have been putting up more results than he actually did, which of course all changed when he was finally able to get that DreamHack victory. But would you say that DreamHack victory was even coming? Were we just getting closer and closer to a moment that ForGG would win a major? Or
it's so interesting to follow ForGG's path in the last few years, especially mentioning like those series against TLO, and a bit of a different time for Heart of the Swarm, since we saw things like the Widow Mine damage change and whatnot before a lot of these builds that he's been using in the last year became popular, with those Hellbat pushes especially. But he got he played a lot of TVT in that DreamHack that he was able to clear through. His TVZ has not been perfect, to say the least. He's got some strong styles. I think on Vani Research Station, if he goes for any type of Hellbat Banshee play into mech, it's very difficult to break in the early game. It's all about what TLO wants to throw at him, because for TLO, what ForGG goes for, he may not be certain, but it shouldn't be a surprise to him. He could have seen every build ForGG has just by watching one of his streams.
Going over one of the games that ForGG played in the round of 32, I believe he was in the same group as Sen, correct? And he played that best of 3 against Sen, which were, probably the most underwhelming games in the entire round of 32. Whether we look at groups that were being played in America or Europe, that was the most one-sided series I have seen. And we all know that Sen is a phenomenal StarCraft player. He's done so much in the past. I did not expect that series to be as one-sided, and that looked like 2 ladder stomps to me. It's literally ForGG warming up a European ladder, and he runs into 2 guys that are not on his level. I think it would be dangerous for ForGG to think that this is going to be the same way. There's no way that TLO is going to be as easy as Sen was.
Yeah, the interesting thing when you compare the mindsets of these players is, for ForGG, sitting down and playing this match could almost be like he's just sitting down playing a couple ladder games. He's got an incredible amount of games under his experience. He's been on big stages like this constantly. And that's not to say that TLO hasn't, but TLO, as the player with not really any big results like ForGG in the last year, not making it as deep into these tournaments as he'd like to, he has the pressure on him, not just from himself, but a lot of the community, a lot of the fans want to see TLO succeed. They want to see him have a big run in one of these tournaments and actually get far, because they know that he can. He knows that he's one of the guys that puts in the most amount of effort at this game. But he always seems to hit these plateaus as soon as he starts to gain a bit of momentum.
I feel in the past TLO has almost made it too difficult for himself, putting too much pressure on him. Like a long time ago, TLO has said that he felt like there were only certain players that he should lose to, and anyone else he should be better against. And that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like he's a very talented player, he's a very hard-working player, but that doesn't make him the only one. His teammate Snoot, for instance, is another example of just a hard-working, very talented Zerg. But I think over time TLO's approach became a little bit more realistic. He's much more focusing on himself rather than, looking at other players and should I do this, should I do that. I think overall he's pretty relaxed. Even when we saw him in WCS America or WCS Premier League round of 32, which was being played in the US, he made a very relaxed approach to me. And even when he lost the first series, I did not feel that he was shaking up and that was already beating himself up. Even though he said in the post-game interview, he's like, man, I kind of hate myself some days for it. I should do better. But I felt overall, I saw a good mentality from TLO.
And we'll have to see if he can bring it up against this guy, the favorite in the group, potentially for all of WCS Season 1 in the South position representing Millennium. He is ForGG.
Going up against the German Zerg, a man who has been part of many WCS seasons. He had to work very hard to get where he is right now. He's representing Team Liquid. It is, of course, TLO. Man, did you hear that timing? We synced up perfectly with the French casters.
Yeah, man. We got it on lock. Of course, TLO, I think I saw on Twitter earlier today, this is just about this week, celebrating his 5-year anniversary with Liquid.
There are many anniversaries in esports coming up, Nate. Soon, you and me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been about a year since we started doing WCS,
I know.
hasn't
This
it?
is the 1-year anniversary of Nate and Roddy.
Aw, in France. So romantic.
Nobody has ever lasted this long with me, Nate. Other than Mr. Bitter. But anyways, it's going to be a great series. Of course, it's going to be a great tournament. We're very happy to be back. It's been a while since Nate and me have casted together as well. So this overall should just be an extremely fun, great weekend of StarCraft 2 action. A lot of players that we're very close with. A lot of players that we cast very often. And some, the polar opposite, players that I've never casted in my StarCraft life.
Yeah, well, it's the fun part about all of this, right? These two players were competing in the European WCS for the last 2 years, and, you know, we might not have gotten to see a lot of them, but we did get to see TLO play games live at the studio in Burbank. We saw a little bit of that shakiness against Kellezer, who played a very, very solid 2 series against him, but he was able to tighten things up for the second match around. And you could also argue that there were a lot less of Kellezer's games to study prior to those round of 32 matches, so TLO might have had an easier time preparing. And as he said in his interview that we got to see right before this match, you know, he's not the kind of player that he would have studied as much, which of course almost cost him his round of 32 life.
Yeah, and it's something you would normally say you can't really blame him for, but Kellezer proved to be a lot better than most people expected. Of course, a play that we are going to see much more of, hopefully, in this WCS year. Season 2 is just a couple of weeks away as well. You know, the great thing is we're watching the Season 1 finals, which also means that the qualifiers for Season 2 are right around the door. That's something that's always very exciting to follow. Are we going to have some new faces break into the scene? Is Kellezer going to go all the way again? We will see. For now, we're going to see the first Reaper march across the map for ForGG. Of course, he should not be able to achieve a whole lot. A couple of Zerglings are on the way for TLO. He's going to try to micro him. We know this dance, Nate. Do you have a certain way to describe this dance?
I mean, he's just looking for a little bit of a way to slow TLO down at the start of the game. If you kill enough of the Zerglings and the Zerg feels a bit of pressure, as, you know, ForGG building a second Reaper indicated very early on, or building the second supply depot indicated very early that he wanted to go for 2 Reapers. So it's a bit more pressure. He's not going to have, you know, quite as fast a reactor, but it still lines up reasonably well with the factory. It's all about delaying the creep, preventing a drone from getting down to plant that third base, and if he can, scoop up a drone kill.
And of course you want to keep the Reapers alive, because the Reapers will complement the Hellions very well in a later phase in this game. Especially because Zerglings, normally every hit they do on a Hellion is a real hit, but if they start hitting on Reapers and not actually get the kills on the Hellions, those Reapers will just regenerate their HP.
Exactly. You don't want to be hitting on Reapers because they recover very well, Rotterdam.
Yep, so you want to make sure that if you are ForGG that you keep them alive. But of course we can trust him with that task. Other than that, both players just macroing up for now. TLO did not lose any drones just yet, got very close to losing one over there, but he was able to save it in just the nick of time.
Yeah, considering that TLO did opt for a speed opening for his Zerglings, ForGG is going to want to get it out of this base around 6 minutes so he can get across the map back towards his Hellions. He could rally across the map, play with fire a little bit. You can see TLO really wants to get this drone down. He wants to start that third base, but without speed, he has no chance of making that happen.
He kind of lost all of his Zerglings, Nate. I think this drone is going to have a very hard time morphing into a hatchery soon, even though speed is about to finish up. But these 4 Zerglings is not enough to kill this Reaper. Yeah. Maybe one if he's lucky. It's all going to come down to, will the Queen be able to get a couple of hits off? No, he's not going to be able to get it for now.
Some solid Reaper micro coming out of ForGG.
He did during all that, and that's the nice thing for TLO, is that he was able to morph into that hatchery. But I think this hatchery is going to take quite a bit of a beating. I don't think it's going to get cancelled, because we all know that Reapers and Hellions are not phenomenal against the hatcheries. But I think it's going to take quite a bit of damage. And obviously, you don't want to be building like 18 more Zerglings right now if you're TLO, because we take a look at the worker tab at the bottom, it's just 33 workers, and that's not a whole lot, Nick.
No. Just putting pressure on this hatchery for now, as TLO is going to squeeze out a few more Zerglings in this position, trying to get something done. The Queens do come down, but if there's one thing that ForGG is an expert at, if you've ever watched his stream, it's Hellion control. This guy is the last person that you want to be able to be out on the map, slipping those Hellions by, getting past your defenses. And I think as this game progresses, I wouldn't even be surprised to see him open up with a few more, just try to punish TLO for all these Zerglings that he has made.
I think ForGG is pretty happy with how this game went so far. If we take a look at the units lost resource tab, we can see that ForGG has lost absolutely nothing yet, while TLO has already lost 11, 12 units. Of course, not the most pivotal or crucial units, but just a couple Zerglings here and there, a few more than he would have liked to lose. And also the creep Right now, it's going to be able to start spreading a little bit. But look at this Hellion army. That is a very respectable Hellion number.
Yeah.
And I would even say you can almost fight Queens with that, Nate.
Well, here's the powerful thing on this map is that he can park up this ramp. If the Zerglings tried to chase him, he would just force them there. But he built extra Hellions compared to what you'd normally get. Runs in, killing drones. 7 picked off already. Going to the natural ramp. And look at all the way these Zerglings clump up trying to get on top of this army. These Hellions get some phenomenal shots off, clearing out the army of TLO.
The Hellion count is dwindling right now. So far, he got 7 drones, which of course is nice. But I feel he needs to get a few more to truly make this investment worth it. And losing all these Hellions, there's no creep connecting the bases, Nate.
And the thing is, ForGG with the Hellions should be able to get a reasonable idea of what the follow-up is going to be. TLO with the Baneling Nest on the way, no upgrades on the Evolution Chambers, and no lair incoming means he's going to go right back across the map with all of these Zerglings, build as many Banelings as he can afford, and try to bust this ramp since he knows this is the stage of the game where ForGG stops building Hellions, and with no bunker inside of his main base, if he busts down that supply depot wall, which he should be able to, he has a chance to counterattack and take the game right now.
And he has 0 map vision, Nate. ForGG has lost absolutely all sort of map vision. He doesn't know that this is coming. He saw that. He might be able to see it with his orbital, which would rather be a lucky scout. But if TLO can do this with enough Banelings, like he needs a few more. Oh, ForGG sees it.
He knows what's coming. Yep. He has 1 bunker on the way. He's going to start up a few extra, but it shouldn't be done in time. And frankly, 1 bunker alone is going to have a really difficult time dealing with this. Here come the Banelings for TLO.
I don't think good focus fire. Oh my god, the focus fire. So real there by ForGG. Banelings can't even connect with the supply depots. But I was already worried for TLO because it just doesn't seem like he has enough over there, Nate.
I think maybe trying to get a few of those Zerglings up front to soak up just a couple of shots would have helped out a lot. But if he can't get the Banelings on the depots, these Marines mowing him down. He's going to try to push in once again. First depot's down, but now there's 2 bunkers, 3 bunkers to fall back into for ForGG. And yeah, he's going to take down the first 2 up front, maybe. Not even.
Well, that was a massacre if I've seen one today so far. Excellent hold there.
Oh boy, TLO finds himself very deep in a hole. He's starting up his +1 melee. He does not have a lair. He hasn't started the carapace yet. Meanwhile, ForGG has his 1-1 completing. He has an armory, so he can start the +2 upgrades, and he's now planted down this 3rd command center. And of course, he could just go across the map with Medivacs too, since Mutalisks are so far away. He could drop all day.
Yep, he could drop all day. He's going to have an upgrade advantage. He has an economic advantage, and soon actually already has an army advantage as well. Basically, ForGG is ahead in every single way you can possibly be ahead in a game of StarCraft 2. He doesn't even have to start saturating this base. If TLO wants to counterattack non-stop, that's fine, ForGG says, because he's just going to march across the map, and he's just going to try to deliver the final blow to TLO right now, who invested a lot of resources, a lot of... Oh my god.
Great target fire on those Banelings, and I totally agree with you, Roddy. With the upgrade advantage he has, it's so easy to leave some units behind, move out with another big push. At this point, in a regular Terran versus Zerg, you're looking to deny the Zerg's 4th base. That's not even remotely close to coming in for TLO. He has a long way ahead of him before he even thinks about that. Still doesn't have the lair tech as this Spine gets sniped. The Zerglings can't beat these upgraded Marines, and he's going to lose everything at this 3rd base.
Yep, excellent counter here by ForGG. Of course, he could play this out in so many different ways, but the hold is where it all started. Maybe even a Hellion run by, but I didn't mind. Man, he snipes Banelings for a living, literally, because he's a pro gamer. GG is called, and ForGG takes a 1-0 lead after TLO tried to counterattack after ForGG decided to sacrifice all of his Hellions for maybe the greater good in the end.
Yeah, that was a very, very well played game by ForGG. It's super important as a Terran player when you're going for plays like that with those Hellions. Whenever you run them into the Zerg's base at the start of the game, you always have to keep in the back of your mind that without the map control that Hellions give you and the ability to micro them around structures, to pick off large packs of Zerglings with a few volleys, that counterattack with Banelings is so dangerous, and it's been the death of many a Terran player on ladder. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ForGG and just run my Hellions by and kill some drones, and then 8 Banelings walk up your ramp, kill you because you went your engineering base too fast. ForGG had his barracks up a bit quicker. He wasn't as greedy as you might see other Terran players be, going straight for 2 E-bays before the extra racks, and just being able to get out those 15 or so Marines that he was able to stim and focus fire the Banelings coming up his ramp with. That essentially won him the game. Because if the Banelings break those depots open, that's not enough Marines with the couple of extra Lings that he had coming in as well.
And the bunkers weren't ready yet either on that moment.
Yeah.
It would have been very tricky, but I did feel that overall, ForGG may have been able to stabilize it all. Because let's not forget, even if he pulls SUVs, he's on triple orbital command, and he started to have upgrades already. Like TLO was super all in with that first Baneling Zergling counter. And it just felt that ForGG was going to be okay in the end. It could have been a lot harder if TLO is a little bit more decisive or a little bit more, he gets himself together better and make sure that he has the right amount of bailings to walk up that ramp, blow up the first depots, and then just stream into the main base. But I did not feel that he had an overwhelming amount of Zerglings on the low ground that were about to run into the main base. Even if he would have killed those depots, I feel, yes, he would have killed some Marines, yes, he would have killed a handful of SCVs. I'm not sure if it would have been enough anyway.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to as well, if he's able to actually get on the depots and the Marines are that close, the splash can go across the supply depot to hit the first couple of Marines. But,
that would have been deadly.
It's a tricky map for TLO, or at least it was a tricky map for TLO, because that's a map where you have that very direct path to move down, and the Hellions are really good. It's hard to just slip by them with a few lings, so ForGG could have played, the style that maybe we've seen him do on the map before, being mech, which can really, really slow things down. Deadwing, though, for map number 2, depending on the spawns, it's like TLO might either start this game being like, okay, I'm really happy, or maybe ForGG's like, well, now I can just push straight down if it's vertical.
For the people who don't really follow or play a whole lot of StarCraft 2, and in this map, you're going to spawn in 2 different ways. It's either cross-map or you spawn on virtual locations. If you're TLO right now, you say, please, baby, one time cross-map, and ForGG is like, vertical would be really nice. If not, I'll just play it out the way it is. We are loaded in to Deadwing, and Nate, you see it, and I see it.
Yeah.
Soon the viewers at home will be able to see it as well, that we are going to have relatively good spawning locations for TLO at German Zerg. It is cross-map, that's as good as you can hope for.
Yep. And for Deadwing, moving on to map 2, big map, lot of space. This is going to be a very, very crucial game, of course, as this is where TLO needs to start to swing things around, Roddy.
Yep. As soon as we are good to go with the game, we can talk all about it. TLO, if he doesn't win this series, it's not the end of the world yet. He lost his first series in the round of 32 that we played in Burbank as well, but he was still able to bounce back and win the next 2. Of course, we are playing the GSL format as always. Winners play against each other, losers play against each other, and then we have a deciders match. But today, we only play the winners match and the loser match. So no matter what happens for ForGG or TLO, they will come back tomorrow to play their remaining game or games.
Yeah, that's right. And you can even so far as to compare it to TLO's outlook on his round of 32 group, where he says, okay, I'm probably not going to come out in first place with Polt here, but I'm totally satisfied and okay with the second place, since that'll mean he'll be able to move on to the bracket stage. And as long as you can do that, I mean, you can't really be too upset with your performance.
Yeah, it's funny as well how... Actually, no, TLO did have a Zerg or Protoss in the round of 32. I almost forgot about Jim, but he played extremely well in those games. He did play against Red, of course, in his Challenger match, and that went very well for TLO. I spoke with Red about that series a little bit, and he was like, I just played in a way that I don't think I should have played. I was overthinking it, and TLO is definitely a strong player when it comes to mind games, because he's been around the block as well, and he's played a lot of important ZvTs already. So I think overall that is a matchup where he should be relatively confident.
All right, so we'll be getting into this next game in just a few moments' time, guys. Sorry for the short delay we're having, but it's all good. And I think this is a series that, when you look at the way that both of these guys play, you expect, a lot of people look at like, well, does TLO have anything weird that he's going to do? A lot of Zerg players, if we're thinking about ForGG's potential to go for something like mech, well, the Swarm Host patch is just around the corner, and that's going to affect mech a little bit as well, but I think it affects the Zergs more so in terms of what builds they're going to be practicing, because in just a few days' time, a lot of those turtle-style builds aren't necessarily going to be relevant anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be very different, to say the least. For the people who wonder, what kind of Swarm Host chains are we looking at? Well, one where Swarm Hosts can fly, or at least Locusts can fly. And as scary as that sounds, Nate, it's probably a little less scary than the current Swarm Host.
Yeah, it's longer periods between the Locust waves, and to be fair, most of the builds that we've seen out of TLO over the course of Heart of the Swarm involving Swarm Hosts were reactionary to aggressive builds from his opponent. Or if we go all the way back to the start, maps like Belshir, Vestige, you have TLO Nidus Swarm hosting against Protoss players that had just frankly had no idea what to do. But I don't think
I still have no idea what to do against that, Nate. I open up with my good old Stargate and I suddenly hear the sound of a Nidus network. I know I'm in trouble. I know there are some Swarmos knocking on my front door, and then you try to counterattack, but often it's too late.
Just too late, Kev. As we're getting into the second map. So Deadwing, all things considered, if we have, like the situation you're talking about with cross spawns, if a Terran player moves out on the map, there's a lot of different ways for a Zerg to run around them, to go for counterattacks, also just to catch the Terran out in the center. The Terran has to move out a bit blindly, to say the least. And as we are now just about ready to kick off game number 2, Roddy. It's all going to come down. Can TLO bring this series back to a 1-1 standstill?
Will we have a deciders match, or is it going to be a clean victory for this man in the left bottom side of Deadwing, representing Millennium? He's been in this country for a while. It's ForGG. It's almost a home match for him.
Yeah, he's probably got better French than I'd say most of us coming over
Than both
here.
of us combined.
Yeah. His opponent in the northeast position needs to bring this series back 2 maps to win. He is Liquid TLO.
I was talking a little bit about this in the start of the series, but for TLO, reaching the round of 16 was definitely no walk in the park. Of course, this year we changed the entire WCS format. It's all been different this time. Just being in the Premier League in Season 3 last year did not guarantee you anything. You had to go through qualifiers. Ooh.
Well, you know what this big map doesn't guarantee, Roddy? It's a big game. As 4GG is opting for... I guess maybe something he would have picked up a bit in France. He's going for his fromage.
What I think... fromage, that's funny, Nate. It took me a little while, but I did get it. What I think is that 4G has been watching the Muslim stream.
Oh, boy.
He has been streaming quite a bit, our good old Benjamin Baker. And if there is one thing that Ben does love,
it's bragging about cheesing people.
Yes, and then analyzing the replay afterwards. He's like, all right, so this is where I hop my Marines into the bunker, and the Zerg is dead.
You know, you joke about that, but now I've got a reasonable bit of like understanding on how the 2 racks works. I don't consider myself an expert in the area, but TLO, it's very standard since you can't know 100% if your opponent's cheesing you to still go for hatch first, go for the spawning pool. He didn't opt for a quick gas, so his pool isn't delayed as compared to a more like a greedy build like that fast speed could be, something that Life would have done a lot. But the Overlord is going to check for proxies. He will see it. However, this could end up biting him if he can't get that Overlord away from the first Marine, as the supply block could be crippling in this early in the game.
The annoying thing is, though, then he would have to lift the barracks, which also means he would slow down his Marine production, and it's still going to take a little while. So do you think he wants to do that? I almost don't see him doing that.
Okay, so he's going to immediately just move in. This is nice for TLO just to know, but it doesn't make it end. Drones are going to come down. He wants to prevent a bunker from being built. This bunker is just far away enough that it's very annoying for TLO to bring his drones all the way out here, as at this point, they're basically just fighting over setting up the second bunker, which should be closer to the hatchery.
Okay, as soon as you start going for a bunker, I kind of feel that you almost have to be able to kill it, even though the first one is very far away and may not pose a direct threat. He's throwing up 3 spine crawlers immediately. Where are the Zerglings? We have 8 Zerglings on the way. Has to cancel. Make sure you don't lose any minerals. You don't have to lose in this phase in the game. I would say so far so good for TLO. He's going to lose his first couple of drones over here, but if 2 of those 3 spines finish, then that should be enough. That's a sport. That was
he really needs to just get these Marines away from the bunker, and I feel like 4GG is doing this exactly as he wanted to. He used the first bunker as bait to draw all the drones out. He weakened them. They can't fight anymore, and now he's going to be able to just kill the Lynx because he can fall back to the
spore. He didn't cancel the spore, Nate.
Yeah, that hurts. And now with 2 spine crawlers, he doesn't have a whole lot to support them. In fact, a lot of hit points on one of them was lost. And 4GG, he can do micro in and out of the bunkers to jump forward and hit these spines. He's got 2 SCVs to repair.
I would run the spore forward. It's a bait. It's a magnet. Go for it.
Just try to use it to block the pathing of the Marines, at least. At this point, TLO's committed too much to really lose this hatchery. And with no gas, he can't go for a big Baneling counterattack. He's just relying on these spine crawlers.
Here comes the spore, Nate.
He's trying to block the Marines from being able to run away, but it moves a little bit too slow. Zerglings do come in. He's going to surround this first bunker with the aid of the spine crawlers. He knocks it down, but there's still another bunker that's within attacking range of this hatchery.
And I feel the Marine count is going quite high. The hatchery losing more and more HP. TLO has to keep the hatch alive, like Nate just said. He's moving both spines forward right now. I think one of them will at least be able to get a couple of hits off. I think TLO is doing this reasonably well, but I think the Marine count is just too high for 4GG.
Yeah, he's going to be able to pick off another spine crawler. The last one remaining has barely any hit points, and he can just jump in and out of that bunker, picks it off, and now it's just a free hatchery at this point. There's barely anything left for TLO. 6 more Zerglings in production, but that alone is not going to stop this. There's still 2 bunkers. GG's called. 4GG takes a quick victory to seal the series 2-0 and guarantee himself that winner's match in Group A.
Yep, a little bit of fromage indeed in game number 2. It doesn't matter if you spawn vertical or cross map, Nate. Those 2 Rexes, you can always put them there. And you know, these guys, even though this is a build that TLO has obviously played against so many times, when someone like 4GG does it, as simple as this build is, they still excel at every little small thing they do when it comes to 2-rexing. And they make it look easy, which is absolutely not. Obviously, a crucial mistake for TLO to morph one of these drones into a spore. Probably didn't have money for the spine. So he's like, all right, I'm just going to morph it into a spore for now. you know, make sure that I don't lose the drone and then I can cancel it. And then I morphed into his spine again, but he forgot about it. And as silly as that sounds, you know, if that spore is his spine as well, then maybe it's a little different.
Yeah, for TLO, when you're pulling drones all the way that far out of the base, it's almost all or nothing. Like if you're gonna pull drones, you got to basically leave just barely enough behind to get a couple of lings out when that spawning pool finishes. Otherwise, just the SCV micro, like ForGG was never gonna have that first bunker delayed, and once that's up, it protects all the others he's gonna build, and just a solid slice of cheese.
Yep, overall, well done by ForGG. Can't wait to see what he has to say about the series as he's on stage with the lovely Smix.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Congratulations, ForGG, on your first win today. You won 2-0 against TLO, and did you know you have not lost to TLO since October of 2013? Did you know that?
I don't know.
But the last 4 times you guys met each other, you always won. So were you confident going up against him because of that, or did you not even think about your previous meetings?
I don't know. I never lose against TLO, but I'm confident against Jerk since after DreamHack Winter. So I just pretty confident.
Well, coming here to the round of 16, obviously you've done very well, but it hasn't been the easiest journey. In WCS Challenger, you won 3-2 over Marine Lord, and then in the round of 32, you won against FireCake 2-1. So you've been winning, but it hasn't been an easy road for you. How do you feel about your condition here at this tournament?
I'm really good. Like I think Marine Lord is most strong my opponent since I'm here. And I'm really very good condition, and also I'm living not long but few months France, so very good.
So speaking of that, I know that we have one representative from France here, and it's FireCake, but you're playing for Team Millennium, a French team, so I can't help but feel like the people here might have a special place in their heart for you. So do you have any words for the French fans that are here?
Actually, I don't know. I don't really know French. Bonjour, bonsoir, jumate.
Thank you very much, ForGG, and best of luck in your next match against Cyril. We're going to head back to the expert desk, so Sean, back to you.
Thank you very much, Smix, and a pleasure to have ForGG on our stage once again. But one question I have to ask myself. To you, Todd, what did he say?
He said it's great to be here, and I'm glad to be representing Millennium, a French team, and keep cheering for me, guys.
Thank you very much for the translation there, Todd. French, definitely not my language, so didn't quite get that, but thank you very much. But now talking more seriously about that series, that was fast. I mean, that's all we can say, right?
That was very fast, and it came down to... Actually, something different happened there. ForGG actually went 3 bases, so his aggression wasn't as strong as it normally is, and TLO didn't go for the Roach build that I thought he was going to go for, but still, it came down to the same thing. TLO didn't have the right position on his queens. He let the Hellions in. And that's exactly what you need to have in positioning against ForGG. Every time he's going to be trying to sneak those Hellions. He's going to be harassing with the Banshees. You can't lose drones in that part of the game because that's where ForGG wants to do the damage.
This is such a simple error and mistake. This is like not having a Zealot in the wall when Lings run by. Why is this happening? Why is that happening on the big stage, Todd?
I'm not sure, really. I think TLO might have been anticipating something different. Usually ForGG is known, for his Banshee into Hellbat attacks, not, for early on Hellion run-bys as much. So maybe TLO was focused on countering that too much, and he was only preparing for one strategy and one timing, in which case sometimes you can get caught off guard. But it's funny actually to see Fenner really emphasize this as much, because it kind of reminds me of me when I casted Baby Knight, and he was doing a few things I disagreed with in like season 1 and 2, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't wait to be playing in this tournament so that I'll show that he can be done differently. I see exactly the same thing as what I was saying and what you say now.
The thing is, it's so simple in theory.
Yeah.
You just got to execute it all, and executing against a top-level player like ForGG, that's a very hard thing to do.
Do you think it's nerves too that play into this? I mean, again, you spent the last week or so with him. Why?
I mean, he always anticipated ForGG being one of the harder opponents in this group. I mean, that's a given, right?
But it's like if you go down in a game that took 30 minutes, then you can say, yeah, he was the hard opponent that I couldn't quite edge out against. But this is more like these simple mistakes are keeping him away from showing what TLO really has on offer.
And this is what, like, going towards the maps, that's why I said at the start, Vani Research Station, a pretty good map to be able to just kind of wall that section off and then be completely fine. But I think he's going to kick himself for that small error.
It's a little bit unfortunate that does mean that ForGG goes up and will play tomorrow now. If you're just joining us, Group A has now finished for the day. We've played 2 matches, the match number 1 and match number 2. Game 3, 4, and 5, as you are well adverse with when it comes to these group stages, will be played tomorrow. And that means we're going to be going over to Group B very, very shortly. We'll have Snoot versus Maxed. But going back to ForGG versus TLO just for a little bit more before we go to the break here. ForGG against Serral is the winner match for tomorrow. It's going to be a completely different series compared to this one. Or it should be, at least, right?
Yeah, it's going to be the same again. Like, Serral needs to defend against a 2-base aggression from ForGG, and it sounds so simple in theory, but can he do it? Serral, he says he's not nervous. Whether he's actually going to be nervous or not, I don't know, because I always think he's going to be nervous, but so far he hasn't shown it. So Serral is really strong in the early game defense. Whether he can do it or not, I'm not sure, because I always think, you know, it's a simple defense, but...
All right, well, here is the conclusion for today of Group A. Serral 2-0 versus Shiga. Pretty fast series, and followed by another one, which was ForGG versus TLO. The winners match for tomorrow will be Serral versus ForGG. Shigua and TLO have the second chance in the lower bracket. The loser of that is eliminated from the Premier League for this season and will have to fight back in Challenger for their spot in next season's Premier League. And that does it for Group A. We can now think about and get ready for Group B, as our next match is going to be Maxed versus Snoot in China versus Norway. Can Snoot start his road to the global finals?